tennis nerds, welcome to the Volkl Vostra review, an odd name unless you're German, to be fair, but an interesting frame, like it or hate it with the cosmetic. I kind of like it, it's pretty funky. Volkl rackets, they've been around for a long time. They produce some real gems with the C10 Pro, for example, which is still going strong. They also have the Power Bridge Mid 10, so you tennis nerds know those frames. They have the V1 as well, which is a great frame. So they have some excellent ones. I've reviewed some on the channel. You can check those out or go to tennisnerd.net where there's racket guides, strings, and so on. So this is the Volkl Vostra V8. It's the heaviest version, the 315 grams unstrung. And it came in at pretty much on spec, which is great. It's a racket which appeals probably, I would say, to old school players or traditional players that like something a bit different, want to go to a modern racket with a more forgiving 100 square inch head size, but want to retain some control, some headlight feel. I mean, the balancing is quite a lot towards the handle, as you can see. And it's a traditional frame going modern. And with a lot of Volkl frames, as with Pacific, you can see that it's kind of a narrow beam design. So the racket doesn't go really round. So if you compare it to, for example, like the old Head Extremes or the new Gravities and stuff, where it's all about the racket shape being a little bit more forgiving, this one plays almost like a 98 instead of 100, thanks to a very dense string pattern in the middle and a more narrow beam profile. Some players love it because it feels like a bit faster, a bit more traditional. Some players might feel like they don't get maybe the benefits of a 100 square inch racket in terms of spin and forgiveness. The beam width is something I like. It's similar to the blade, 22 millimeter, has 24, a little bit thicker up in the hoop. But overall, that makes it like on the one-handed backhand quite nice to take back and go for. Is it powerful? Yes, but it's not the most powerful 100 square inch racket you'll find for a 315 gram version. It's a modern player racket that's supposed to be giving you some spin, some power, but with staying within parameters of control. So I would say like Wilson Blade 100, the Dunlop CX 400 Tour, Pure Strike 100, 1620. These are rackets in the same category. Yonex Percept 100. These types of frames that I really think many players should look into. Players that might be stuck in the 98 category, which is a bit too demanding for them, and they want a bit more forgiveness, maybe some help on defense, which usually helps with the 100 square inch head size, but they don't want a power or spin racket, which gives them too much and takes away the confidence where they can swing out properly and go for their shots. This one, you do have the confidence. You do feel like you got enough control to swing out. I was surprised that I didn't get more out of the frame. Daniel commented on that as well, that it feels like a little bit less power than you would expect. Not sure I'm 100% a fan of that. It feels like I could get a bit more out of the frame. But on the other hand, it was confident enough, especially on flat shots. So the string pattern was not very launchy. It was pretty controlled, pretty straight, and good for players that hit flat. I think this frame, like I said, could be a very good transition racket to modern rackets for someone who's stuck in the 95 square inch or even 98 square inch camp. They want to have some more help, some more spin from the racket without going extreme. Then this Vostra could be good. They have the Riva technology in the handle, did not feel too harsh, does filter out some vibrations. It's not the softest racket on the market either. It's a 66 strung stiffness, that means 69. But with a 100 square inch head size, I think generally you need around mid 60 strung stiffness, because otherwise there's a risk it might be too noodly. But in that case, I kind of prefer the comfort from the blade. I did feel like this is maybe a little bit firmer than the blade, but a little bit softer than the Pure Strike, more like a Dunlop CX 400 Tour with a slightly denser string pattern. So if you're a fan of the CX 400 Tour, and this one could be interesting if you want a tad more control, especially on flat shots. I felt like the 100 Tour, you need maybe to hit with a lot of spin all the time, and this one has a denser string pattern in the center, so the ball will go a little bit more through the court on some shots. Very rectangular grip shape, not the rounded like Wilson, and not as extreme as Technifiber with its super rectangular, not even-sided like Prince, but quite rectangular. For me, difficult to find my grips. I usually play semi-western, and here I can't quite find it. It feels like I'm playing more old school grips with this racket. So for players with Eastern grips, maybe it's a bit more suitable than modern grip. So that's my feeling, at least. So a bit more rectangular than you might get used to, which is why I tend to recommend you to demo rackets before you buy them, because if you buy this and you feel that the grip is off, and it could be also other things you don't like, it might be a problem. Tourline Caviar, a nice spin-oriented string that is not too stiff. I like it around 49 pounds, that's 22 kilos. Did add some weight to bump up the swing weight, did add a little bit weight in the handle. Played fine in stock form, but I like a bit more mass on my racket, so that's why you see this lead tape. I would say the Dunlop 640 Tour has perhaps a bit better feel. They really engineered a nice feel, a nice sensation when striking the ball. The Pure Strike was a bit too stiff for me, the Pure Strike 100, although some players might like it if they like that bowl-out crisp feel. But this one is good. There was nothing stand out here that made me smile. Or I did play pretty well with it. I felt like I had some confidence when playing with it. But I did not have something that stood out, or I wasn't like particularly enthusiastic about it. Although I can't find anything bad. That's as personal of a review I can give you. And Daniel felt like it had not enough power and spin for what it's supposed to be, a modern player racket. But I think that a transitioning player to more modern frames will appreciate that they didn't go all in with the big open string pattern and so on. So I think that's pretty good. The comfort seems good enough, to be fair. It's not going to be like a Clash noodle frame. It has some firmness. You need to think about your string tension and what strings you put in. You should always do that, of course. But it's a good stick. But like I said, and like you can hear in my voice, it's not something that made me ultra excited about playing with it. I would say like the Blade 100 was something I got a bit more out of. Like I did enjoy that experience a bit more. It's also battling with the Pro Kenix KI Q+5 Pro, which I was a big fan of when I tried to transition to 100 range rackets a while ago. It's the same similar specs. That one is a bit more solid with the kinetic tech in the hoop. That feels like a tank, and I think a lot of you like it. I also feel like the string pattern there is even denser than this, but it has similarities in playability. So this is definitely not a bad racket. It's in that category of rackets that I really think many players should look into. It also comes in lighter versions, so you can get for 300 gram if you find that 315 grams is too much. I just want to point out that when they add like 315 gram versions of rackets, it's usually because the weight is in the handle, which takes some customization out of it. And I think most players really like to have a bit more weight in the handle because it makes the racket feel a bit more maneuverable, and it also makes it feel a bit more solid, despite the weight not being really in the head. So when you go to the 300 gram version, it's good to keep in mind that the balance point changes. Usually the mass here are about the same, but it has less mass here. So I would definitely consider playing a slightly heavier frame if the racket is headlight enough. Solid frame, decent on everything, nothing stand out. More control than I expected, but also less power and spin than I expected. I thought could have a bit more, would help a bit, especially a little bit higher launch. The launch is very through. I think that has to do with the quite narrow beam of the Volkl. It's a solid contender to the rackets I mentioned: CX400 Tour, Blade 100, Pure Strike 100, Percept 100. All these 100 range control rackets on the market now, which is becoming a stronger segment for a good reason, because I think many of you should play with a control 100 instead of trying to go for the 98s. That's the review. Check out more reviews on tennisnerd.net and their guide to rackets and strings. I hope you have a nice day now, and don't forget to play some tennis.